So the writer's strike has been going on now for about 106 days, joined shortly after by the Screen Actors Guild. And whether you've been paying attention to it or not, I think it's the start of something bigger conversations to be had, bigger concepts to be talked about the impact of ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, things like that. So today I have Julian Gavalanes coming back on to talk about how the writer's strike and the actor's strike is affecting him as an actor, the projects that he's working on, whether in production or the things that he's personally working on, and just really the implications for what AI is potentially doing for their industry and how that can spread over into subsequent industries like the music industry and then the industrial industry. So we are speaking from personal experiences here. I'm not an actor or part of any guild, but I'm very curious about these conversations and how they will continue on, like I said, in different industries as this idea gets more broad. So really excited to talk with Julian. Always love getting him in front of me, and the information that he has to share about his personal experiences and the industry that he works in is very beautiful and beneficial. So hope you get some out of the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back to the show. Today I'm talking with Julian Gavalanes. So if you recognize that name, you might have seen him in something on TV, on movie. You might have heard him on episode 88, White Knuckling Joy, which is still one of my favorite analogies to use right now. But the reason, one of the reasons I'm having Julian back on, just besides he's an amazing human being, I love talking to him, is Julian is a writer and an actor, and he's part of this writer strike and the actor strike that's going on right now. And just with the imposition of AI that's starting to come up and the different chat GPTs and things like that are happening, it looks like the acting world and the writing world is one of the biggest proponents for making sure that these rights are taken care of right away and understood. I do feel like this is going to be a big tipping point for the music industry next to get their streaming rights figured out, for the artificial intelligence conversation to really get some kind of ground to make sure that we're starting to compensate people for what this technology is going to inevitably either support or take from us. And as Julian and I were talking, we were opening up the conversation, just kind of catching up a little bit. And as he was talking about the ways that AI is being utilized in industries and what the cautionary tales are right now, one of the things that kind of popped up into my head is that like things like ChatGPT right now, yeah, it's like it seems really interesting and really cool, but basically ChatGPT is a web or a word generator, right? It just predicts what the next word is going to be, and it just kind of goes on with that, right? You give it information, it's going to pump out these words. And so for me, like that, as cool as that is, that to me is an artificial intelligence. That's just basically a word generator is trying to figure it out. So utilizing something like ChatGPT as a tool, to me, there's a correlation between that and something like autotune, right? So like take an artist like Britney Spears. She had a great team of writers behind her to write the music and producers to produce the music. She had a decent voice, like she could hit some notes, but she didn't have the best voice. But you have things like autotune that come in and say, hey, guess what? That C flat needed to be a C right on, so we're just going to bump that little bad boy up to a C, right? And so like it supports the artist, right? Now you have artists like T-Pain that made it his whole thing and just used, auto-tune for his entire thing, right? And so, but with that example, to me, that shows ChatGPT as being a tool that we can utilize to maybe say, okay, I've written a script, I've written this song, I've written something, and I want to just maybe fine-tune it a little bit, so I'm going to pump it into ChatGPT or something like that and see if there's any kind of help that I can receive from this. And to me, that's the same as using something like autotune, right? You're getting assistance from something outside of something that a human already created, right? And so I think, the conversations that I've been hearing about and the information that Julian has sent me about the writer strike has been amazing. And I'm so just happy that this is happening, even though I know it's really hard and detrimental to the industry and to the actors and the writers that support that industry. So before I get too much into just my opinions and just the stuff that I've read, Julian, thank you so much for being here. You're just an amazing human. And thank you for taking time out of the projects that you're working on and the strike that you're helping support, to talk to me and to our listeners and to kind of give us an update on what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And it is, what you're talking about, kind of enhancing art through these platforms,
Right.
this chat GPT specifically, in relation to like auto tune or something. It is. And I actually took the movie that I'm producing right now, and I was making like a pitch deck, which is essentially like a lookbook for people who are going to uh, consider possibly investing in your movie, production houses, whoever. And so you make them like essentially it's a children's book
Mm.
of what your project is about, so that it's very layman's terms. They see exactly what it is, and they can make their decisions according to that. And there's, you always hear about like an elevator pitch. What's
Mm.
your elevator pitch? And if you can't say it in like two sentences, they're just like, you lost me.
Yep.
And so I've been working on that for a long time. Like what is that? What is like my tagline, my log line for this film? And sure enough, as soon as I learned about ChatGPT, I like plugged it in and I was like, oh shit, this is great. This is a great log line. Like this sounds super professional. Like I'm putting this on our IMDb page and we're rocking with that. Um, it does it I think at first it feels a little like it's cheating. It feels a little bit like, oh man, like especially like in art.
Mm.
It's like, oh man, like you didn't actually like write that, come up with that. But like what I'm starting to realize is that you still have to have the initial idea for what it is that you want to be word generated, to be corrected, to be emphasized, or to be turned metaphorical, or whatever you want out of that. You still need to come up with the idea yourself. So you can't just write like, I'm taking a poop and hope that it generates something about, Mark Twain's book.
Right.
You still have to like come up with the actual creative thought for it to then enhance that thing. Similar to Britney Spears. Like Britney Spears doesn't exist if Britney Spears doesn't exist.
Right.
Like she had to be there. She had to put the time and effort in. She had, sure, like people can argue, like, oh, her voice was auto-tuned. It's so fake. It's so great. It enhanced her performances so that millions of people could go and see her shows around the world in stadiums and like have the connection to her to actually like, you know, like be moved and to move her and to, I don't know if Britney Spears is necessarily the greatest example to speak about now and like where
Yeah.
she's at. I don't know. God bless her. She's a great human being. She went through a lot, but like it's all to say that like it was all for the connecting purpose of like connecting humans and like bringing people together. And like despite the quote unquote cheat that like got it there,
Mm.
it was successful in its impact and
Right.
in what it was like attempting to do.
Yeah.
And as long as that's the case, utilize those resources to your best advantage if you can. You're still a person that like gets to make the executive decision as to like how you lean into it or how you direct it and how you use it.
Right.
And so I'm like a proponent for like how like in acting too. It's like, a lot of people, you go into an interview or you're doing like let's say a press junket or something, and the question you keep getting asked, or let's say a question that um uh let's use Heath Ledger before he passed away
Okay.
as an example. What was your process for getting into that character, the Joker? How did you get there? What did you do? It's like, look, it doesn't fucking matter how I got there. It's just the fact that I did,
Hmm.
and the fact that you get to be moved because of it is all that matters. I don't need to show you how the sausage is made. I don't need like, as long as the sausage is made and it's like providing you the nutrients that you need to like get through your day and to like be fulfilled, don't worry about how it's made. Like, and if there's like cheating ways and like I'm sure there's arguments, and this could be a controversial topic, but like at the same time, it's just like do what you need to do to get there. Like if you have integrity as a person and as an artist and as just like a human being who wants to just like invent something and come up with something new, or even come up or recycle old information and old ideas, like, but you want to put your spin on it, then go for it. Like, don't let it stop you from being a creative person. Don't let it like, I think people are so uh like agitated nowadays just at like the state of the world and where we're at, and like, oh my God, back in my day when we didn't have cell phones and smartphones, we could, actually go outside and play in the trees and climb and go knock on somebody's door. It's just like, well, we're not there anymore. So
Right.
like figure out what you can do to make yourself feel satisfied, and like take advantage of some of these things, because there's some resources out there that can actually help you like streamline your art or your idea, and like move it in a direction that like might surprise you and be like, oh shit, I didn't realize that I could be a screenwriter or a novelist or a plumber. Like you can go on fucking YouTube nowadays and literally learn how to build a house.
Yes.
Like, and like people do it.
Yeah. Most
So
definitely.
like, and like of course there are scary things about the AI coming in and like stealing our jobs and stuff, but like at this juncture, just like continue to try to have integrity, continue to work on what you want to work on, and figure out ways for these resources to help you. I
Right.
think that's just like the best, most positive headspace and place that you can kind of like be leaning towards at this point in our world's moment.
Yeah.
So
Well, with where you're at and the the vastness that you participate in the industry that you're in, from writing to acting to producing, you have the movie that you're working on right now. So it sounds like you're kind of cautiously optimistic about the involvement of AI and how that can be utilized as a tool. But at right now, as you stand with everything that you're working on and you have worked on, what are the concerns that or what is the benefit that you think the writer strike and the actor strike is going to help with your industry? So what are you guys basically trying to fight to make sure that there's fairness with?
yeah, I mean, ultimately, this whole AI thing is like a secondary issue for writers and actors.
Right.
It's not like the top priority, although it's definitely bleeding into the concerns. I think the top priority are getting pay structures regulated
Yeah.
with the new in the new age of streaming services. So for people that don't understand, uh, 10, 12, 15 years ago, Netflix came out and became like the first kind of like streaming platform to host television shows, make television shows. Now we're in a world of Peacocks and Hulus and HBO Max and Freevee and Tubi, and the list goes on,
Hmm.
right? And we're seeing uh, basic cable networks kind of ceasing to exist. I mean, the same like top 10 channels on your basic cable still exist, and you can have direct TV and whatever, you can utilize all those channels, but realistically the majority of uh people who are viewing media, televised media, film media, are doing it through these different platforms.
Hmm.
What happened is that in 1960 there was a strike between the actors and the writers, which is 63 years ago, and the strike was so that they could get pensions and they could get health care and they could get residual income for their likeness on shows that continued to repeat and play. 63 years later, the streaming services have completely undercut the whole entire structure of how actors get paid, because it's not regulated anymore. What's happening is Disney Plus, Netflix, Peacock, all these platforms where new shows are going towards and aren't even seeing basic cable. They're just going straight. They're being made for Max. They're being made for these things. They're going in. They're getting viewed by tens of millions of people, sometimes hundreds of millions of people over time, and there's no metric that is
Hmm.
being delivered to the actors, the writers, the people that are creating these shows for them to register like, okay, well, how much am I entitled to back on the back end of the show?
Right.
Actors, writers, directors, producers, people have typically relied on the back end of their project with it's the incentive to be successful, right? If our movie is successful, on the back end of this thing, we'll get paid
Hmm.
and we'll be able to like monetize it and we'll be able to move forward and make more projects. But now because these streaming services are keeping that all under wraps, there's no regulation. There's no regulating like what the metrics are. We can't see. And so there is no pay structure anymore to the back end deals of these things. And writers and actors alike are fighting to be compensated fairly for this stuff. There's a there's I think a lot of misconception around like actors and writers of Hollywood being just rich and like having it like we're good, like we're fine. You guys are Hollywood people. And so many people forget to consider like the blue collar workers that make up these industries, which are the vast majority.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not a fun fact, but it is a fact is that 87% of all 160,000 SAG union members, 87% of those members don't qualify right now for their health insurance, and the qualifying amount in order to make to get your health insurance is $26,000. So
Wow.
87% of the entire union doesn't make enough to get there. They don't make $26,000. So like the average, it can be broken down by like the 1%. People think of like these George Clooney's and these Brad Pitts and these
Right.
the Dwayne the Rock Johnson. They're like, these guys make so much money. Like, what are they talking about? You're forgetting that like 98.9% of all actors are like have secondary jobs
Hmm.
and are working like other gigs because they can't make enough money to even like let alone qualify for their insurance, even to like pay their rent to do these other things. And so it's just this interesting fact where like multiple years ago when everything was on cable, like in the heyday of like sitcom television, the Friends world and stuff, people were hearing, oh well, like Ross and Jennifer Aniston and these characters are all getting like 1 million per episode. And yes, that's totally true. But that's not talking about like the day player roles that are going on and doing like little guest stars for one episode. And even then though, they were able to make money on the back end of that show's popularity because the show continued to rerun. Then the show went syndicated and it was playing on all these different networks. I did a show, excuse me, called Blue Bloods.
Hmm.
It was one of the first shows that I ever did when I moved out to New York, and it is a syndicated show. And syndicated just means it's done. I think currently like the amount of episodes is 88. If you reach 88 episodes in your season's arc, in your series arc, then it can be considered syndicated, which means it can go and travel to different networks, play on different platforms, and it's not only married to the one platform that it was dedicated to when it was bought, which means now your show gets paid by all these different networks as well. And so, I saw the back end of going on and doing like an episode of television, which I was like, wow, this is great. Like I'm getting paid as my likeness continues to appear. I'm getting paid, at first it felt like I was like, oh my God, I don't feel like I deserve this money. Like this feels crazy. I feel like this is just free money. You actually stretch your annual income out as an actor, and you're like, well, that was my only job that year. So like, and the actual like annual amount that I made from that show still isn't near close to enough,
Hmm.
and it doesn't necessarily need to be. I don't need to like go on and do one episode of television and have my year be good. We want to be working, but we just want to be fairly compensated for the work. And now that we can't get those residuals to be coming back into our pockets because there's no way to regulate them, we are concerned for our well-being because slowly and slowly that 87%, that 86% is rising,
Yeah.
and people are less capable of qualifying for just these basic needs that their union is meant to be providing them with. And so I think that's like the real reason that the residual income
Hmm.
is the real reason why we are, trying to make our voices heard to these like giant Disney execs and these giant Netflix, huge, uh, you know, corporations who are essentially just giving less than 1% of their revenue back
Right.
out to us. It's not like we're breaking the bank for these guys. We're just asking for what we deserve. It's
Right.
not like we're trying to get rich off of this. We're just trying to get paid what we're owed. Especially when we are the people that are creating these opportunities for them to get paid. We're putting the money in their pockets.
Right.
And so hopefully with this strike and with us be like, people aren't going to see the slowdown of of television and films until about 2025. But then that's going to happen. They're going to be like, where's everything happening? Like, we're not on strike anymore. What's going on? But they won't have realized that like this all takes time. There has been stuff that has been coming out. Obviously, when I do like a movie, uh, it comes out a year and a half later and people are like, bro, you're killing it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even, that happened so long. I don't even remember like doing it anymore.
Right.
But
Totally.
associate that with like that time that they see it. And so there's going to be this big gap that's going to happen like come sometime in 2025 where work is just the writers are currently on strike today for 106 days.
That's crazy.
That's the longest it's ever gone. And the actors are behind them by like a couple months, um but it's a big deal. And we are like there's negotiations kind of slowly happening right now, but it doesn't sound like they're in favor of what we're asking for. And so we just keep going. And it's scary, but it's also inspiring. And it's
Right.
also just like, we're not going to back down until we get this. And they can continue to like threaten us with like AI technology, this, that, and the other. But eventually, like they have spoken, they said, and then when I say they, I speak of the AMPTP, which is like the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers.
Hmm.
They are these like corporate executives who essentially own the streaming world. Um, they're going to run out of projects. They're already losing tons of dollars in revenue. They're it's going backwards for them, and it's going to get to a point where they're going to be like, okay, we can try like this AI technology. We can try, reaching out to influencers or people that aren't part of these unions to try
Right.
and help us like, hoist this industry up. But eventually it's going to fail for them, and we're not going anywhere until they recognize what they need to for us. Um,
And you
so
gotta
yeah, it's
you got to make those
go ahead.
stands, right? You got to make those stands. Put your heels in the dirt, because it's not like these companies are not making money, like you said, right? They're
Right.
giving maybe 1% of their profits to the actors and the people that are actually writers, actors, people on the set doing the fucking work. These people are there just collecting the money, right?
Billions, like
Yeah,
billions of dollars, not just
totally.
like they're not making pocket change. They're making billions of dollars. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah, and
go
that's
ahead.
that's where the issue that I have with corporations, right? Corporations, they're designed to make money. They have to make money. That's the purpose of a corporation, especially if you're publicly traded. Then you have a board of shareholders of some sort, people that invested in the company that have say as to like, okay, let's take the writer strike for example, right? So these the writers want more residuals, right? And so the corporation looks at their books and says, well, that's going to take money away from our bottom line that our investors have already okayed on what that bottom line is, so we're going to just say no, right? And that's such a bullshit cop out, right? Because there's so much money that's being made in these companies that's arbitrarily being thrown around. They probably spend like millions of dollars on like copy machine rentals, right? But they won't fucking give money to the people that are actually making the products for them, right? So there's just like this imbalance. It's like the finite game that people are playing, right? So if I win, if so, let's say MGM wins, then the writers lose, right? But there's a way that MGM can still win and still make money and make their profits and whatever they need to. Maybe lower what their expectation rate on profits is, right? But they're still making fuck tons of money, right? So it's just we have this imbalance of what we think we need to keep growing and profitizing and like all this shit because capitalism says we got to keep moving, right? We got to get better than yesterday. We got to make more money. How do we do that? Well, right now it's by taking money from the people that we don't think deserve it and putting it back into the pockets of the people that just sit around and do fuck all, right?
Yeah, and it's it's not even it's so sneaky because they're not necessarily like taking money out of pockets. They're just like they're creating their own structure so that we don't see what we're entitled to.
Mm,
And for writers even they're like reducing the size of writers' rooms So typically you'll have like 7 or 8 writers in a room for big show that we all watch and love.
Hmm.
And we watch it and love it because they have excellent writers in the room that are working on these shows. But they think that if they reduce the writers' rooms, they make them smaller, they'll have to become more efficient because they'll be like essentially all they're doing is they're packing impossible work onto like less amount of writers. They're like undercutting the like associate writers that would be coming up at this time to like essentially like increase their like take the steps like the steps up the ladder through this industry that they're trying to rise in,
Hmm.
and they're getting completely undercut. They're losing their job, but they're just keeping these like top tier writers in the room, but then making those top like those like higher level writers have to take on the jobs of the associate writers, and then it's just getting all convoluted and it's becoming a mess because they don't have enough. They're already spending a 12-hour day on in a writer's room or on a set as an actor is like a good easy day.
Mm.
Everything above 12 hours is what you're essentially supposed to expect when you go on and work on a set. So to reduce the amount of labor in those rooms and to expect the same execution for the job is insane. It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen because they're already pushing these people to work at levels that is insane. Like try to take an unskilled writer and put them in a writing room, see what they do. Like it's insane
Yeah.
the amount of work that these people are required to do and on the deadlines that they're required to make them in.
Yeah.
It's really, really challenging work. And so, to threaten those writers with their lives, their livelihood, and their job, and to not give them stability is such a disservice to the entire industry as a whole, because it's not helping foster better art or better work. It's just pushing them to like have to work quicker with less people and for less pay,
Right.
and it's not servicing anybody. And if they expect that they're going to continue to have the same result, it's just that's where we're at now. We're not. We're
Right.
gonna stop. We're gonna pull ourselves out, and we're gonna strike until we actually like get back what we are deserving of getting, so that we can bring people the joy that they get out of being able to sit down on their couch at the end of a long day and relax and watch something that they love watching.
Right. Because I mean, at the end of the day, with writers, I mean, it might be a misconceived understanding of with people outside of the industry or people that don't know, but it's not just writing a script, right? There's still interaction with the actors. They're sitting at the set to see how the line lands, to making readjustments, all this like this real time shit that's happening. And one of the concerns you sent me a few podcasts to listen to prep for this, and one of the points that this gentleman made, which was I thought was great, was one of the scares is that okay, so we'll just pump an idea into ChatGPT, for a script. That script pops out, and then it's up to now that small group of writers you just talked about that used to have like maybe 7 to 10 people. Now there's 2 people that have to now go through that bullshit script that was just pumped out and revise it to make sure it makes sense, and then also then go to the sets and do all the other stuff, and that has to go in. But you're doing it in a product that you probably don't even really believe in because you weren't part of the process. You just inputted it in. You've had to now, gut and rework this entire thing, but you're getting paid pennies on the dollar for doing it, and they're still doing
Right.
all the work that follows that, but you're still getting shit pay, right? So it's like
Right.
what motivates a human being to take something that a computer's created, make it more humanistic, and then go beta test all that shit and get paid nothing for it, right? It doesn't
Right.
make sense, that process of it.
Right. I think they think like that half of the staff writers in the room are like the middlemen or something. And they're not. You have to be united in a writer's room. You have to be able, in order to create something that's good, you have to all be so connected and so dialed in with each other, and to be on the same page, and to be throwing out ideas, and to be, yes anding and
Mm.
working together and being aligned in order to make something like Breaking Bad or Succession or Marvelous Miss Maisel. These shows that are celebrated. Like you can't, they don't come because executives are like forcing their hand on writers and being like, this is what you guys need to do. Absolutely not. If like they just stayed out completely, they would be much more efficient at getting these things done and probably doing a better job of even having them done. It's incredible that they are able to adhere to the schedules that they are deadlined with constantly. It's especially in television. There's like television is moving quick. And not only is it like being written and then being shot and then being edited and then being televised, there are so many components and so many moving parts. And just to the people, like actors excluded, like the writers, like you said, are doing they're typically like the showrunners of these shows as well. So they're not just like writing the episode, but they're essentially directing the episode as well. They're production managing the whole entire show. They're overseeing every single facet of what's going on with this show. And when you are an actor on a show, you're noticing that every day that you show up to set, the script is revised. The script is changed because they're hearing it out loud. They're seeing what's happening. They're adjusting to changes as they're coming up. And so it's an ongoing process. It's not like they just have this golden script and then like that golden script is gets sent out and then like voila, some like beautiful movie made. It's like it is such a process. It's such like a a complicated system to make anything to actually make to write a script and to make a movie and or a television show and for it to be successful and for people to really like resonate with it is a miracle. Like it's a literal miracle at work for all of those things to happen. There are so many shows and TV and movies that have been made but have never seen the light of day because they can't get there. They can't figure it out. They can't make it all the way through. It's like it's magic. It's truly like magic at work when these people are all aligned and making this stuff work out. Way more often than not, it's unsuccessful. It doesn't work. It doesn't get complete. But when it does, it's like we see it and we just kind of regard it as like, that was, or even criticize it like, I didn't like it that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like, what are you talking about? You didn't like it that much. You know how much fucking work put into this shit? I don't care if you don't like it as much, like respect it.
Yeah.
But that's we're not asking for that. We're trying to make good work. We're trying to make things that are compelling to people. And I just think that if you're not in the business and if you're not doing the work, you just really don't. Why would you? Why would you have an understanding of what it is? Because what you see is what is kind of what you get. And so you're like, oh, cool. Like I could act, I could do that like scene. Like, that looks, they just look like they're having fun.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And to a certain extent, like, yeah, it is. We got into it because we love it. It is fun to a certain degree, but like, there's just so much more nonsense work that's going into these projects than what people understand unless they're actually a part of it. And hopefully through these strikes, people are kind of starting to see that
Yeah.
there is so much more work involved in these projects than like what they're getting credit for.
Yep.
Um,
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to have on I have so many cool conversations with people, and I've talked a lot about, the people have asked me a lot about the writer strike. I'm kind of ignorant about it, but I'm like, dude, I have a dear friend of mine that is a writer and an actor, right? So let's talk to him. Let's get that understanding so we can have a little more of that empathy for all the industries that are out there. You can have these preconceived notions about like the tech industries or the Hollywood industries or whatever it is, but yeah, there are people out there that are probably making millions and billions of dollars, but there are also people out there that are barely making their way by, that are still a part of all of these industries and that are very integral into the creation and the upkeep of these industries, right? And so like making these rights, finding these rights, like I can't remember who said it. It was somebody in the 70s, but basically paraphrasing was like, human rights are very rarely ever given. They're mainly fought for, right? And this is exactly what you guys are doing. This is a right that you need to make sure that y'all have. And I think, like I said earlier, I think this is the impetus for a lot of what's going to happen next, continuing on in the entertainment industry, but also moving into the industrial industries, right? Artificial intelligence is barely knocking at our door with what the abilities that can happen for us, right? And we need to make sure these parameters are set in place. And with a big, gigantic industry like Hollywood saying, hey, we're cool to be the first ones, we'll wave that flag and figure this shit out. I think that's going to be a big steamroll for the rest of these industries, if not setting precedents, at least showing that like we're not going to take this shit and we're going to demand that we're taken care of, we're compensated, that we can still live our lives and still be a part of this industry, right? I think that's very
Yeah.
important that we protect the humans to make sure that the humans can still be a part of this world and not just turn it all over to, some artificial, not even artificial intelligence, but artificial creation, right?
Yeah. 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 It's an interesting time to be doing, to be a creative person, to just be in the world, it's so this rise of technology is so fast moving, and
Yeah.
it's hard to keep up with it. Honestly, it's hard to keep up even with the strike that I'm a part of right now,
Right.
like I stand in solidarity with the writers strike. I'm not a part of the WGA, but I am a part of the Screen Actors Guild. And so they're not, I mean, they are connected because they're part of the same industry, but they're two separate unions, and and both are fighting for similar but not completely the same
Right.
issues. And and yeah, I wonder like what will happen with different industries outside of my own, but I'm so uh motivated and inspired by the people that I'm seeing out there every single time I go out to picket and to like stand on those lines. It's such a cool reminder that we are together in this thing and we're not going to back down, and that we are brilliant people that are creating really special, moving art for other humans to take advantage of. And I I just feel like from being able to feel that energy out there in those lines day in and day out, these motherfuckers are out there every single day, dude.
Yeah.
They're out there just screaming and shouting right outside Netflix office, right outside, Warner Brothers, right outside whatever. Like they're out there
Hmm.
all day, every day. And it's like, dude, good on you, man. That's so inspiring to see. And I just have a lot of faith in what we're doing and trying to accomplish because, again, man, I don't think any of this is for the people that the rest of the world registers as actors or writers. This isn't for those, it's for the working class people.
Hmm.
It's not for the high level, high status celebrities. Those celebrities are coming out and supporting this, but they recognize what they're doing. They recognize it's not for them.
Right.
They recognize it's for people like myself and the other people that like make up this union, these unions.
Hmm.
And so I just feel really uh encouraged by everything. And it honestly, I mean, truth be told, just kind of feels like an extension of the pandemic. The
Hmm.
pandemic already put us in this kind of standstill that we were in. We just weren't asking for what we were entitled to. Now we've had time to really like marinate in these thoughts because we're stuck in them for a long time, and we had enough time to really kind of like come up with a plan to change our circumstances. And it's appropriate that it came, pretty soon here after this pandemic. But as a working person, it's been a little bit scary to just be, not working for 3 years for the most part.
Right.
It's just been like a dead industry. And I think there is going to be a really cool, um, like rise of wonderful art that comes from all of this stuff. I think it's already been happening since the pandemic. We've seen some of that already that's been coming out that we've seen in the films and the television world. But I think this just like fosters more artists to get up on their feet and start making more shit. I'm included in that. I'm literally doing it as we speak. And I don't think it's because we're in a strike, but it's certainly like a result of having been stuck in my own space without having like any acting jobs to jump into during the pandemic. Write, make stuff happen, get to work, like get this shit out there. Don't worry about the fucking AI people. Don't worry about these giant producers. Keep standing on the picket lines. Keep like raising your voices. Keep asking for what you deserve.
Hmm.
And eventually like, we'll get there. But make art in the meantime. Continue to make art. Continue to just like get your own creative voice out into the world, and we're gonna get there. We're going to get to where we're aiming for.
Yeah.
It's all just a matter of time, and we'll see how long this lasts. It could go for a fucking year. I don't know. Like, I don't think that's what anybody wants, but
We'll see
we're
what
not gonna
happens.
just settle.
Definitely.
So
Well, you
yeah,
made a really good point about the open creativity that happened during COVID, and just people being creative, right? Whether it was musicians that did like Zoom stuff, or actors that did stuff on YouTube. One of the best things that I've seen recently that I love so much, and it's not really original if you think about it, but I don't know if you've seen this, but during the pandemic, just a bunch of well-known actors, TV and film stars, individually recorded scenes from The Princess Bride and
oh
all
yeah,
put them together into like this hodgepodge backyard self-charactered, self-makeup depiction of The Princess Bride.
yeah,
And it was
yeah,
fucking amazing. It was
awesome.
so
Yeah,
weird and like it's disjointed. Sometimes like you'd have William H. Macy playing the priest, and then in another scene you'd have like somebody like George Clooney playing the priest. So
yeah,
it was like no consistency in actors, but it was such a beautiful, fun project, I would imagine, to make, but to watch, it was amazing. And so, like, I really, you actually made a comment before we hit record about, like if this is the industry and this is what we're doing, let it happen and see what happens, right? If AI thinks it can write a good fucking script, chat GBT, unedited by a human being, fucking put it out there. If you want to take the
yeah.
likeness of Adam Reel and pay me, 500 grand for my likeness to star in that movie, but I'm not doing anything, and then you can use whatever. Fucking do you, right? Let it become like a subgenre, right? See how good, bad, and different it is. It's not too far off from a lot of the music that's out there right now, right? There's subgenres of created music that actually there's playlists on Spotify. It's really interesting. I just found this. There's playlists on Spotify that are called "These Are All the Exact Same Songs," and if you go through, they're all different named songs by different artists that are all the exact fucking same. And the idea that somebody's hypothesizing about this is basically they're using artificial intelligence. Spotify's using artificial intelligence to create all these ambient music songs and backing tracks and shit like that, so they don't have to pay residuals to their artists, which are pennies and pennies and pennies on the millions of views and streams, anyways, right? And so, like,
Right.
and if you listen to them, yeah, they're fucking songs. There's a keyboard, there's a beat, there's maybe a guitar, there's no vocals. Yeah, it's a song, but is that something that I would just like drive in my car and listen to? Is that something maybe I'd use at a sound bath or something? Maybe.
Yeah.
So there's all of these industries that are already starting to kind of put this type of technology out there. And like, it's not being overtly well received. It is just kind of like, it is what it is. So to like the point you made, yeah, throw it out there, right? Let it be one of those subgenres like, like anime or, whatever it is. And yeah, people want to go there and just get their little quick AI fix, cool, whatever. But there's also creating the stasis and the stability for actors and writers and producers like yourselves and your cohorts to be creative and to do the thing that's in their heart and that's in their soul and the vision that they have in their fucking head that nobody else can create because you're the one that was gifted with that fucking idea.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in seeing, like, okay, what does it look like to have like a fully produced artificial intelligence film or television show? Like, let's see it. I'm interested. I want to see it. And then I have a feeling like, despite how good or bad it is, there's always going to be a human interest for human interests.
Right.
Like humans are going to want to continue to like feel what like another human's doing. So if, like even if you just know like inherently that like, okay, I'm watching something that is with uh, uh, a robot. If I know that this is produced through AI, you're going to have that in the back of your mind while you're watching it. Sometimes you have to suspend your disbelief when you're watching comic book movies, Marvel movies, whatever. You're just like, oh wow, like that's really cool, but I can't like really full like you're not like as blown away by that explosion that you just saw, as you would be if you're watching Oppenheimer and you're seeing that explosion,
Right.
because you're like, oh shit, that explosion's fucking actually real. Whereas this, so like, great animation aside, but like actual AI moment where you're like, okay, I know what I'm watching is recreated from this AI technology. I just think that like the knowledge of watching something like that is already going to kind of like bring the tone down from like what people expect out of movies that they watch. Out of, we don't watch movies because we want to uh just like I mean, we do watch movies like the Marvel ones, these giant movies that fucking get us all excited, and Dwayne the Rock Johnson movies that were like, fuck yeah, great, great, great. But essentially, like, I think more than anything, we're we're trying to find something that we can connect to, that we can relate to, that we can feel like empowered by,
Mm.
and encouraged by. Like, that's why we go to see theater. That's why we go to see movies. That's why we like get excited, or we cry, or we laugh, because we're like actually having those human moments. And I want to see how AI is capable of doing that for us. And if they are, like, then maybe I'll be scared because I'm like, oh shit, man, like this can just be an ongoing thing, and there's no way to tell the difference. There's really no way to tell the difference. I don't think that it's going to prevent real artists from continuing to make real art, though. And I think, like, man, I have we both have so many friends in the music industry, and I like, my heart goes out to them because this has been an ongoing thing for them for even
Right.
longer. They're not unionized people. They're just like, individual artists who are trying to fend for themselves. And even, friends that are successful aren't, because they're not able to make money from like what you would assume is like, oh, you must be rich.
Yeah.
They're not, like they're struggling, and it's insane. And I feel uh I feel really grateful that I am a part of a union, that like I'm not doing this on my own. Like, I'm standing with a lot of other people who are also fighting for the same thing. And yeah, I hope that, the musicians kind of follow suit. And I think it's just a matter of time before kind of everybody in all of these industries start kind of like putting their foot down and being like, no, we need to like conserve jobs. Otherwise the human existence is going to be obsolete, and like our need to do work and to like thrive in this world that we've created we're not going to have any use for ourselves at all, and we can't let ourselves get to that place.
Yeah.
Um it is a nightmare. It is a bad movie. It is a scary movie, that we've all seen before. um but I don't know, man. Like, I do say kind of like, let's see what you got. Like,
Mhm.
I'm fascinated to see, and I think the pendulum will swing. I think people are gonna eventually just say, I prefer the latter.
Yeah.
If you're doing blind taste tests, you're gonna be like, okay, cool, like, because it's gonna be a feeling. You can't generate a feeling, by through generated things.
Yeah.
You have to like cultivate that through like real human connection. And I just believe that like AI won't be able to do that same thing.
I agree.
But we'll see.
Yeah, at least right now, and my example that just came to mind, I recently heard uh, an artificial intelligence generated song with Notorious Big and Tupac
Mm.
rapping together over a 50 Cent beat, and I can't remember the 50 Cent beat. And initially, I'm like, cool, love that, love Biggie, love Tupac. I would love the idea that if they were still alive, they'd make music together, put their shit behind them. And like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's listen to that. And I listened to it, and whether I had the thought in my head already that it was artificial intelligence, I was still excited about it. It was a fucking shit song. It was terrible. I didn't like it at all. I could tell that it wasn't, in the style
Yeah.
of them, in their maturation of their styles, right? It just didn't make sense to me, right? And it didn't like fill me up and be like, oh, that was a fucking jam, right? Like, I'd rather
Yeah.
listen to fucking Usher and Little John's "Yeah," right, than this song that I just listened to. Nothing against Usher and Little John, right? But to your point that you made, like, I can tell, like, and whether the normal human being that maybe not be like a big hip hop fan or a big Tupac or Biggie fan, maybe they'll just be appeased and they'll just be, oh, that's a good song, I like that. But to the person that loves those musicians and loved those artists, it didn't land, right?
Yeah.
It didn't land at all. And but the idea of that creation happening was really cool, right? The idea that that can be put out there is really cool as an option, right? Now, you've made a couple points earlier about how the human needs to continue on in this world, and we need to find ways that the human's still going to be viable, right? Because we're fucking part of this planet. And
Mhm.
since I mean, this idea has been talked about since the '70s, if not earlier. But there's the idea of universal basic income, and it's the idea that as artificial intelligence, because they've been talking about this since the '70s, right? So we've been understanding that computers are coming in and making jobs easier, and then eventually taking jobs, and we can look at the labor force and all that. But does that mean that because now we can be more efficient in the way that labor is doled out, that all these millions and millions of people that were working now don't have jobs? They don't have a job they can pivot to, right? And so instead of making all these hundreds and hundreds of millions of people find new jobs, while all these big corporations are still making fuck tons of money, more money now because they're not paying their laborers, percentages of those profits that they're making from their labor savings is now being reinvested back into the economy in the form of like a monthly paycheck that goes out to every single human being in whatever country. Now you can have all your listeners out there, if you have any like raised eyebrows, socialism, communism, blah blah blah, read books by Guy Standing. He's blasted through all your arguments. It's a very beautiful program that's been tested for about 50 years from little impoverished areas in Indonesia to counties in California, right? And they've had very similar success with all of these studies. But the idea is basically that like as this stuff is happening and as these jobs are being taken by computers and AI, whatever it is, that frees up the human to be more of a human, to be more creative, to be more part of this world, right? If you like look at this, there was a commercial that came out in like the mid '80s for IBM, and it was like the first like commercials about fax machines and emails and like all this shit, and the tagline was IBM, creating technology so you can be home with your family. Now, we haven't adapted to that at all. We created all this technology to dive us deeper into work, into deeper into this world, and deeper into I got to answer my fucking cell phone, text messages, and emails and all this shit. Midnight, I'm sitting there half drunk on my couch watching TV, answering fucking emails for work. That's not really responsible, right? And so we've taken all this technology and just integrated it into making us work harder, right? And so now, looking at all the technology created, let's utilize it so that the human doesn't have to work as much, but we're still compensated. And now utilizing that free time that we have to create, to do the weird shit that nobody thought I could ever do, to put time towards this song that I've been thinking about for the past 20 years that I just don't have the time to fucking do anything with, to spend time with my fucking children, right? And not feel guilty about going to their baseball game and not, having to go into overtime because, I got to pay for whatever the fuck I got to pay for, right? So we have this ability to not rest on the laurels we've created, but to utilize the technology that's out there so that we can be more humans. But it starts to fuck with people's profit and then people's mindsets of, this socialism idea and all this shit. So like, and I don't want to trigger anybody by that, but I think that the conversations need to continue on, and having an industry as big as the Writers and the Screen Actors Guild be one of those like impetus for this whole conversation to start, I think is great, because this is, like you said, an industry that's looked at as a you've made it industry. Oh, you're an actor, you've made it. Oh, you're an actor, you must be George Clooney. Oh, you're a producer, you must be fucking, whoever it is, right? No, everybody is somebody in these industries. That doesn't mean they're making all of the money. So how do we
Yeah.
support all of the humans so that these industries can continue on? Or if we're not going to, how do we support the humans so that they can still be a part of this world and still be creative and still feel that they have something to give and contribute?
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, that's great, man. I think like a lot of the negative talk surrounding uh, like what artificial intelligence is going to do and not acknowledging like the resource that it can also be is just kind of perpetuating um this idea that people the people that aren't that are aligned with those thought processes are not creating to begin with.
Hmm.
Like they're like people that are talking down or like not taking advantage of the resources that are right in front of them, given what we have. Like I talked about, utilizing Chat GPT to be like, oh, cool. Like I made this log line. This is actually really good. This is cool. Like I had to come up with the idea, but it kind of enhanced it and made it better. I think people that are gonna just like hate on this are are people that aren't out there on the picket lines trying to like utilize what's already available to them, aren't going to continue to create. And there are people that like don't really understand what their ability to create even exists as to begin with. And I hope that through what you're talking about, it's going to expand the opportunity for people to like tap into more of their human quality and to be able to have more time to be creative and to like see themselves through the mirror and to look and be like, oh, wow, now I actually can spend more time with my family. Now I can actually like, if I use this correctly, it can benefit me in a lot of ways. I can actually set aside time to not have to just dive more into this, to be more efficient in my own world and to like let that thing do the thing that like it can do. I think for a long time I sat with myself and was like, I need to do more. Like I remember somebody was like, I was making videos for the podcast that I was making,
Hmm.
and somebody came at me and they were like, hey, just so you know, like there's a thing that generates captions because I was making like Instagram videos for our podcast, and I was doing captions at the bottom. And I was going in and like writing every single caption myself and like timing it out and making it. And this person was just like, hey, there's like a thing that just like generates your captions for you and that stuff. And I was just like, I don't want to do it because like part of it is like me wanting to do it. Like I want to actually like put my time and energy into it. But it was almost kind of both just like, well, if I like I wanted to feel proud of the piece of content that I created, but I also was getting stressed out because I didn't like ever have time to do anything else. And I was just like, well, I don't part of me just like it wanted to feel that need of like of fully like creating this thing that I was doing. But in retrospect, it's just like, bro, just let it do that thing. Like if it can, it's not taking the job
Hmm.
from me. Like it's just getting that thing done so you can put it out and like you can have now time to go spend time with your girlfriend who's already rolling her eyes at you because you're fucking sitting on your computer trying to make some stupid fucking piece of content for a fucking dumb show that nobody even cares about. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you know? And so it's really just being thoughtful about like what do you want to give over and what do you not? We still have our like rights as human beings like intact. We still have the ability to have integrity. We still have like freedoms in other areas that we can like utilize, and we don't have to just be subject to like, oh, AI is here, like we're fucked. Everybody's fucked. We're all just like, I have an opinion of it all, like just gonna fucking totally ruin everything. Everybody that's like saying that is not spending enough time looking at how they can actually benefit from this, not only for themselves, but as a maker,
Hmm.
as a person that's a part of this community that can like add to it and contribute something, bring something to the table, learn something new. Like the ability to learn new things right now is fucking insane.
Yeah.
I know from my own experience. I didn't know how to make a movie. I still don't know, but I'm learning and like I'm taking the steps. But you know where I'm learning how to do it? From the fucking front of a computer screen that I'm like typing questions into and I'm asking it. And it's like giving me like, learned information that it has taken in already. It's just recycled information that other people have spent time figuring out. And now I could take advantage of that. And if I do it correctly and I don't let it like overtake my whole entire life, that I can actually become pretty efficient at what I'm trying to do and eventually be proficient at it and like know how to do it without having to do any of the shit on the computer. I'm doing it like out in the real world and I'm getting it done because I'm essentially just taking school right now,
Hmm.
by like investing my time and energy into figuring these things out. At some point, you can walk away from it and be like, I have the skill set now to like execute the thing that I wanted to execute without having to utilize anything with my bare hands, whether that's building a house or that's making a movie or that's writing a book or that's becoming a plumber, or that's whatever. Like I can learn how to do that. And then once I've figured it out, I can walk away. You have to have the integrity though to like walk away from it and to not get so sucked into this whole entire world of like how it's gonna like blow this entire universe up and out of proportion. And you have to like as a human being, as an individual, have the integrity to continue to like move forward with a positive headspace and to continue to like output goodness into the world and continue to bring stuff to your table. Otherwise, like, yeah, it is going to take over and we are going to be fucked. And I just don't choose to live my life that way. And I think like that might be very like artistic of me and ignorant of me and kind of just like, oh yeah, Julian, you're just an actor, so you wouldn't like understand. And maybe that's true, but I'm still going to hope that at the end of my life I can kind of like take stock of the connections that I made in my life and wasn't so subject to like all of the fear that I was just constantly surrounded by that ultimately probably killed me and
Right.
will do so to many people in this world. I just implore people to like, you know, really explore their free thinking ability, and to really like take time to not just read a headline and to like think that what they're seeing is like what it is or what it needs to be. If there's something that intrigues you before you start like talking it out into the world and just perpetuating the gossip trend of the whole entire thing, like spend some time really forming like an actual opinion about it and like deciding on it for yourself and deciding how you want to like work within that frame space. And I think if you're able to do that and to be moving forward with that sense of knowledge and that sense of like wholeness for yourself as to what you're doing and to why you're doing it, without just like, well, he said that, so therefore this is what I'm going to do. Like especially in the world of podcasting right now, I listen to so many podcasts and like sometimes I'm just like, well, that's what I believe because that's what I heard and that's what that person said, and because I have a relationship to that person and they're smart, they must know.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, no, dude, that's not right. That my thoughts need to be my thoughts.
Right.
I need to create them. I need to have those things. I need to feel empowered to be able to make those. And so I think like, we need to be talking more about integrity as a human rather than like AI as like a moving thing coming at us. And I don't know, again, maybe I just sound like a fucking dipshit actor who's like doesn't know enough about it. And again, maybe I am, but I feel happier being that than living my life in fear that like this shit's gonna take me out.
Right. Well, I think you're speaking from a place of your own experience, and that's honoring your experience and where it's at, and not assuming the experience of something else, right? And I think that's where we start to get a little convoluted. Is like you said, I've heard through this person, that heard through that person, but have you checked it on yourself? Is that something that you're willing to speak to with confidence, right? And a lot of this, as because I'm 43 now, right? I'm 43, and so not getting any younger, keep getting older. And as we're getting older, all these technologies are coming out, with AI and all this stuff, these advancements of the world. And what it makes me think of is like in the 80s, the baby boomers, the impetus or the the kind of the Achilles heel that I always saw when I went to like grandparents' house or something like that is the proverbial blinking VCR clock, right? Nobody knows how to set that fucking VCR clock if you're over the age of 50. It just fucking blinks. They don't get it. It's 12 o'clock flashing all the time, right? And
Right.
so and having that wherewithal and having that awareness of like, okay, so I remember how disconnected my grandparents felt from technology because they just didn't get it. Luckily I was born in 1980, so I was like back end of the analog age, right the beginning of the digital age. So got a kind of like a good working understanding of both. But as we get older, technology grows so fucking fast, right? So I can take the blinking VCR clock of ChatGPT and be like, fuck it, I don't get it, I'm not going to get it, I'm not even going to worry about it, right? And I'm going to let's say I live another 20 years, so I'm going to live the rest of another 20 years of my life just ignorant of ChatGPT and all that stuff that's coming around. So I'm withdrawing myself now from life, right? And so if we can
Right.
find those ways to be cognizant of what might be scary to you and asking the right questions to kind of quell some of those fears that you might have, and you finding the way to utilize it. Like by no means was I scared of ChatGPT when it first came out, when I first started hearing about it a few years back, but I wasn't like sold. I beta tested a couple times, plucked around with it. But literally 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting here. I just got back from camping with my family. I'm stressed because deadlines that I've set on myself, right? Nobody's external deadlines, all my own shit. Like podcast to release, I got to write it up, I got to edit it, I got to do all this shit. And I've got like 12 hours to do it, right? Before my own personal deadline release. And so I'm like, there's no fucking way I can do this, right? There's no way I can, all that stuff. And then the thought came in, is like, well, why don't you edit your episode and then put your notes into ChatGPT and see if they can do a write up and use that as your show notes, right? And so I did. And I popped it in there and it popped out 3 paragraphs of shit that was like maybe 2 sentences for each one was good. And I compiled it together and was like, what I would normally spend an hour on painstakingly going back and rewriting, just a fucking paragraph, right? I was able to pump out in 5 minutes and edit it myself to where it made sense and it sounded like me saying it. But it was, I will always do that now, right? That is now a tool in my toolbox that I'm going to fucking utilize so I don't have to beat my head against a wall doing shit that I know I'm not that good at, but I can edit things, right? So, like, utilizing these things, finding the ways that they work for you, finding the ways that, like, the thing that you've just shunned could be the aha moment you've been waiting for, right? If you just take the time to figure out how it integrates with you, not how somebody tells you it's going to integrate with you.
Totally. And also knowing like what you're trying to represent through what you're trying to have it be given back to you. Like what you receive from it should be exactly what is already in your head. That's just like you're already like I'm thinking of kids in like grade school right now who are going to like utilize these resources to like write papers or something like that, right? And I just hope that they're able to, you know, in order for it to work properly, they still have to have the ideas and the thoughts and like they need to know what they're trying to do. Maybe they want it to be done more efficiently. So, but they're still like having to come up with the subject matter of what they're trying to have the result be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, this is like a nuanced conversation because you like want younger kids to like spend the time figuring out how to like write, how to be thoughtful, how to do these things. And I think again, like as long as you have integrity and you want to learn and you want to continue to like use these things for the benefits that they're meant for in where we're at, like everything can be taken out of context and be used improperly. You know, you can take a car and you can fucking drive it off a cliff or drive it into somebody if you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can be used to damage something else. But I think like now that we're in this very new age working with these new technologies, it's really important that people utilize them to the best of their own like intelligent ability. You know, be smarter than them. You know, don't take advantage of this stuff for the wrong reason. You know, utilize these things to benefit you and to be efficient, but like be thoughtful about why you're doing it and how you're doing it and for what purpose to like move it farther. But it works, it helps, and it can be such a great resource if we just like I got my quick tagline and you authored your episode and like you can do that with so many different things. It's just, you know, how and why are you doing it? And if you can answer those questions and like really know that you're doing those for the right reasons, then I think let's keep exploring this stuff and keep figuring out how we can use it to our best ability. And it's gonna get crazier, and I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. I think we're gonna go through like a really wild time where we're fucking scared and art is weird and like maybe art is great, but then and you know and like the working class people that are trying to like have engineering jobs are gonna be out of work, and then unions are gonna come back and they're gonna fight and they're gonna strike, and we're gonna go through a weird 20s. I think this whole decade is gonna be like a real fucking weird decade. But I think, and who knows, man, like I'm just speaking out of my own like opinion, but I just think like on the opposite end of this is something that is so wonderful and so neat for us as humans. I think we're going to like the pendulum will swing,
Mhm.
and we're gonna go back to the basics, and we're gonna like r realize how important those basic human like tactics and qualities are, and why they were, you know, presented to us to begin with. And maybe we'll be able to like utilize some of these new technologies to help us foster those things. But like ultimately, I just think like it's gonna be weird before it's like in a really good space. And
Yeah.
whatever anybody's opinion of anything is right now, unless you're actually at the forefront working on these technologies and trying to like, enhance them or do things with them, or push them into corporate companies and to make more profit from these things, unless you're in those positions, you really don't know what's going on. And so just like relax
Yeah.
and be thoughtful and try to just use your brain a little bit while you're exploring these things, and just fucking do good work, try to use them for good, and be brave and be smart and be conscious and just like have integrity. Like that's all I can try to like do for myself, and
Yeah.
I'm really just speaking to myself because I don't want to be scared,
Yeah.
you know and I also don't want to be taken advantage of.
Hmm.
And so there's like a fine line that I have to walk in order to like accomplish that as a person nowadays. And I think I'm not alone. I think all of us are, not just as an artist, but as a person.
Yeah.
How do you like how do you exist in 2023 with like integrity and trying to like be the best person that you can possibly be
Hmm.
given all of the resources that you have?
Yeah.
I think that's something that you need to spend time thinking about and like journaling about and really considering. Um, Otherwise, you're going to get too caught up in everything else that's kind of thrown your way, and then your identity is going to be a result of all of that.
Yeah.
And what is that? What even is that? I
What's
don't know. It's fucking
the way
weird.
you're talking is it's so great because it's almost like we're encouraging a renaissance to happen. Like we're
Yeah.
encouraging this human renaissance to come back again because we have all these tools that can help us, but there's also the beauty in the human creation. And maybe we get to that point where we realize that, like, yes, there's all these tools that can help us create, and that's beautiful. That's a genre, but there's also this renaissance of like, I created this with just me, right? And there's that human creativity. And so, the idea that, humans like to play with toys, new technology until they break. We'll play with them wrong and then we'll break them and then we figure out how to use them right. Like cell phones is a
Mm.
great idea of that. We take the idea of fast food chains is another good idea of that. Like we found ways to get food in random parts of the world in a very efficient way. We've just delivered shitty food, right? But the delivery system works, right? It's just the food that's being delivered sucks, right? So if we can take that model, put better food out there into these still random places in the world, some cities, some little individual places, we got it, right? We just got to change the way that the product is being delivered, right? But with that idea, it's like we we're gonna fuck it up, right? The more aware we are of how we're fucking it up as we're fucking it up will hopefully not prolong the process of fucking it up. But the
Right.
awareness that we have and that wherewithal to be able to utilize the technology to see what's actually going to make sense and not make sense, and then that ability to pivot, I think it's going to be very important as we start to go through, like you said, the 20s, and then and like dictate this coming renaissance is going to happen.
I'm 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 really uh excited about the future.
Hmm.
I have to be, because it's so easy to not be.
Yeah.
And I don't think it 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 services me in any way to just be afraid, or to be, such a naysayer of like, oh my God, like the world is coming to an end. Like, yeah, I think there's all these technologies, man, can be so fucking helpful to the
Right.
climate crisis, to the fucking, the food shortages in different countries, and to bring water to place. It's like, dude, we we've proven it. We can change the world for the better if we allow ourselves. We just need to like reverse our approach in a lot of ways. And I don't claim to be the person that's going to know how to do that, but I just fucking really hope that like the people that are in power can like be influenced by artists and other human beings that are really trying to take a stance and to do something uh, for for a good reason. And I hope the art that comes out, moving forward, sparks minds of the young people who, do have that power and that wherewithal to like move into those positions and to make those changes and to really see the kind of change that like we're asking for and we need.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't think the approach at least our country's taking is super sustainable at this point. And so I just want, I want through my own, like I'm not trying to make this like about the world and what the world we're talking as like I'm an actor and we're on strike right now. But still it's it it's consistent with everything else, like we're in this position because we're in this position.
Hmm.
It's relatable to so many other things. Um, and I just want to fucking come together, man, and like make things uh, slow down and stop and like look and like to put a mirror up to themselves again for a second and to do some real like shifting of priorities. And I'm doing that currently with myself,
Yeah.
as I learn new things and trying to like understand like what do I really stand for? Like what am I really trying to do here?
Yeah.
Why? Um, and I think those are really important questions for every person to ask themselves.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, especially, I mean, with this being one of the first big major industries to go through this, don't think that, your industry might not be next, whoever's listening, right? It's this is
I'm
going to
sure.
start to just expand out as, these technologies start to become more proficient at whatever jobs that they're going to do. So, paying attention and just understanding like what the talking points are from the different industries, even if it doesn't directly relate to what you're doing, there's going to be crossover with this stuff, right? So I think so not being an actor or writer myself, but what are some of the things that that the world or just people can do to help this strike that's going on, whether it's maybe not going out and holding a picket sign, but are there ways that like the normal human being that's not an actor, writer, or producer that can help either watch specific content, not watch other content, supporting certain studios. I mean, is there something that, that we can do to help support what you guys are working towards?
Yeah, I think like, there was talks of like boycotting the streaming services, and then it was just like, well, that's not really what we're trying to do. We want people to see stuff. We want people to see the work that we've done. We want people to like enjoy themselves, and we don't want to just like create this uh uh very aggravated sense of like everybody's now pissed at the actors and the writers because everything's cut off now and nobody can. It's just like we're not trying to do that. I think more than anything, we want people to be educated on what is really going on. If you see something about this, I think the news media is in bed with a lot of these big giant streaming platforms,
Yeah.
and so a lot of times their narratives can expose some like false news about you know writers being entitled, like wealthy people or
Hmm.
whatever the narrative is not always accurate, and it's not coming from the horse's mouth. And I think to just understand really why we are doing what we're doing and to understand what the unions represent as themselves, um, it, it clears up the narrative to be talking about these things. I think a lot of people are, I ask people that aren't part of this industry, are you familiar with the strikes that are going on? And it seems like it's a pretty widespread like news thing that's
Yeah.
going on right now. It's covered, like, yeah, I do. Like, what's that all about? Nobody really does know about it. And so their impression is that George Clooney's on strike and fucking what the hell is he on strike for, man? Like, why is Fran Drescher up there talking right now? Who the fuck is Fran Drescher? Like that girl is such a badass, dude. She's such a gangster, and she's our union president, and she's crushing it. And she's like passionately speaking on behalf of all of us right now and fighting. Um, in such a cool way as like she's really a pioneer of of like the entertainment's world coming together to like she's at the forefront of this fight
Wow.
to do something different and to change like the way that we like see and support art. And it means a lot. And I think years from now we'll look back and recognize that like as silly as it can be, it's like, oh yeah, fucking like the nanny's out there just like screaming at people again. I think she's gonna like really go down as like a gigantic pioneer of some change in this industry. Um, and I don't think there's like a bunch of funds people can like donate money to and this, that, and the other, but like I don't even think that's necessary. I think a lot of the big actors are putting money towards that stuff so that the small actors can, pay their bills right now and this, that, and the other while they're not working.
Hmm.
But I think more than anything, it's just learning what's going on, reading the actual articles, watching some of like the go to get like start following SAG-AFTRA, on your social media. Start following the WGA East and West and watching like what's going on. Listen to like the people that are actually out there on the lines and what they're talking about and what they're fighting for, and just really get caught up on like why it's happening. And if you know a writer, if you know an actor, check in on them, see how they're doing, feel this is a weird, weird time.
Yeah.
And I think the support that you give just vocally in like, hey man, like I think people, it's always like, oh man, it's so interesting. You're an actor. Like it's so cool. It's like people people regard that occupation in such in this high regard because what they know and recognize is what they know and recognize.
Right.
But then you say, hey, like, like, oh, what did you do? Like, oh, I'm in a movie. They're like, oh, cool. Like, do you have speaking lines? Like, yeah, yeah. And like, oh, like they always like think that like, oh, you're in something. Well, if you're not this thing, if you're not the main guy that's working opposite George Clooney, then well, then what really are you,
Right.
And it can be so easily reduced. And I think that as an actor, man, like there is so much to be proud of in our in like the work ethic that it takes to just get a job in general. It's so fucking hard, man.
Mm.
Just to get like a one line part in a TV show. Like if the normal everyday working class person knew what it took to just like be getting again like your health insurance paid for by the union that you're a part of, if they knew how hard that actually was, they might have a little bit more compassion towards the occupation in and of itself and towards like how they watch stuff and like how they regard it, and to like not be so critical of stuff and to really like pay homage to these people who are like making art for you. It's not for them, it's not for their pocketbook. No artist becomes an artist because they're trying to get rich. They're
Right.
trying to be an artist so that they can connect with people and make them feel something, and so that they can feel something. So just just read up,
Yeah.
learn about it, follow certain people. Uh, this the SAG-AFTRA is a really good place to start, and just like know what you're kind of talking about, know what they're talking about. Um, I think more compassion will come from that kind of place. And if you hear people talking shit, correct them.
Yeah.
You know, I think people that are talking shit are misinformed and don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And go and check in on your fellow actors and writers, because they're a lot of them are, like really trying to figure out what they're supposed to do right now. I'm in a good fortunate position, but a lot of them like we're just getting there,
Right.
just
Yeah.
reaching that point. And like this is happening. And so and like look, if you don't have momentum, you don't have anything. Like they have to ride that momentum.
Hmm.
And it's just like, look at us, dude, we got it. Boom.
Yeah.
It's over.
Fuck, man.
And it's just like, damn, dude, like that's so frustrating because it's already frustrating. It's
Hmm.
already so fucking difficult. And I'm not trying to like sound like look, I know there's like much harder jobs and people out there that are doing like much more taxing, difficult labor intensive jobs. But mentally and spiritually, and like putting your time and energy, blood, sweat, and tears into this job so that you can really cater to other people's joy,
Hmm.
um, is something that matters.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, popcorn pop music. It's like it's art, and it matters. And I think there's a lot of there's a lot of really good people that are trying to come up in this business. And if we could figure out ways to get what we're asking for, it'll make it a lot more accessible for those young, talented people who wouldn't have a way in otherwise to get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, just learn more shit, man.
Yes, always learn more
Hit the
shit, and I'll put a bunch of
hit.
links in the show notes for the social media tags that Jules talked about, and some of the websites you can visit to learn more about it. But yeah, keep educating
Cool.
yourself because like we talked about just a moment ago, this is this industry right now, but don't think your industry is not next. And not just to scare
And,
anybody. That's just to be
right,
informed.
but with that being said, like pay attention to kind of some of the things that are working and what aren't working, because it, more than likely these are going to be like conversations that you're going to be having to have eventually, if that's the actual case.
Yeah,
So, take note of a lot of like the things that we're doing currently that are seemingly working well, and just kind of see what's happening. Like, just be in the know. Just learn about it.
hmm,
It's fascinating stuff. It,
yeah,
it really is. There's a lot of like really interesting people out here that are like doing some cool work that um, I think a lot of people would actually be glad to know that they researched about and figured out.
yeah. Well, brother, I
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your point of view with this and how this is impacting you and the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild. And we hope that this is going to come to a beneficial agreement for the writers and the actors. That you guys can fight for the rights that you have, continue to fight, and make sure that you're protected, right? You guys are taken care of because this is I think just the start of all of these conversations with a lot of these industries. So, be informed. Check out the links we'll put in the show notes. Reach out to us if you have questions that we can help you with. But Jules, you're the shit, man. Thank you so much for being here, brother. We love you, man. Thank you so much for spending time with Julian and I. Please check out the show notes for ways you can support Julian's projects that he's working on or support the writers and actors strike. Also, just ways to be informed what's going on. Obeisance love. We'll see you next time.